Good evening and welcome to the Wales Report. We're used to talking about devolution of powers from Whitehall to Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it's happening in England too. Manchester will soon have a mayor and already has power over health spending. It's part of the UK government's plan for what it calls a northern powerhouse, with cities like Liverpool, Manchester and Leeds coming together to try and counter the economic might of London. But could North Wales benefit from that powerhouse too? And will the Welsh Government make sure it does? Well, as part of the BBC's Real North Wales season of programmes, Brian Meakin reports.
The Northern Powerhouse is about putting aside regional rivalries in the north of England and working together to create jobs, back businesses and improve transport links. It has the UK government behind it, and its aim is to be able to compete with the prosperous south of England, giving the UK a more balanced economy.
In July, I set out my plan to build a northern powerhouse and connect up the great cities of the north and their surrounding counties, and of course North Wales, by investing in transport, science and by devolving powers from Westminster to elected city mayors.
The M56 is the main route from Manchester past the heavily industrial Ellesmere Port and into North Wales. It's a vital link for businesses and workers, and a sign that when it comes to the economy, there really is no border. I'm taking a trip around North Wales to find out whether the Northern Powerhouse is an opportunity or a threat, or maybe a little bit of both. The Welsh Secretary Stephen Crabb, on a visit to the region after the election, said North Wales was very much part of the government's powerhouse plans. But is it really? We're just coming on to the Deeside Industrial Estate, and Deeside is a really booming area for the Welsh economy. It includes some of the biggest companies in Wales, including Toyota, Tata Steel and Airbus. But it also includes a number of other much smaller companies that create wealth and create jobs. We're going to speak to one of those now to see what they think they can get out of having a northern powerhouse in England on their doorstep. Asghar Shibani is the chief executive of a global telecommunications company and chair of the Deeside Industrial Park Business Forum.
Because we don't see the border between us and Cheshire or Liverpool or Manchester. We see a part of them. But because for us to go to Cardiff, it's a long way to connect to Cardiff. So it's much easier. Within half an hour we can be in Liverpool, or 45 minutes we can be in Manchester. It's a very short distance. So why not use this opportunity? I think it's a madness to ignore this fantastic golden opportunity and not act upon this.
With the UK government having appointed a minister for the Northern Powerhouse, I asked Asghar whether he'd like to see the Welsh government create a North Wales minister.
Oh, would it be wonderful? Because if we had a North Wales minister, that person, we can hold that person to account that yes, you're responsible to deal with North Wales' infrastructure, and yes, you're responsible to work very closely with Westminster's Northern Powerhouse Minister for North of England, working together, and that would work. That's practical thing, pragmatic. Whether they'll do that, I'm not optimistic.
On the road again, this time to see someone who's responsible for making sure people in North East Wales have the skills to compete in the jobs market. David Jones is the principal of the 6th biggest college in the UK.
I think the biggest threat is Wales, and particularly North Wales, not working together. We're so parochial, aren't we? I think that's the problem. We're trying to do it through organisations such as the North Wales Economic Ambition Board, but ultimately it's about the Welsh Government. We have devolution, economic development is devolved. I think the councillors at least need to work across North Wales and operate as one. If we do that, we can use the starting point we've got, because think about it, we've had devolution for around 15 years, something like that. They're just having it now. Perhaps they can learn from us. I go back to the same point. If we're not joined up, if we're not working together, if we don't get local government reorganisation either, if I bring that thorny one up, but my personal belief, if you don't get that, you'll never get North Wales working together properly.
But is the will there for greater cooperation between the UK and Welsh governments?
North Wales has always been the forgotten part of not only of Wales, but also of the whole of the UK. And I think that so far as the Welsh Assembly Government is concerned, it's not really that high on the radar. I think that they should be looking at improving those links across the border. They should be working very closely with the Westminster government, and they should be seeking to develop joint economic policies that would benefit both the northwest of England and northeast Wales. I mean, the truth is that North Wales is very much part of the northwestern economic zone, and that is something that the Welsh government should be recognising.
So we're going to end the road trip asking whether the Northern Powerhouse will find its way here to the shores of Anglesey. And we're going to be talking to a company that's found a home not just in countries like Italy and Spain and the United States, but also has found fans, including the President of the United States, Barack Obama. Helen Mohn's just opened a visitors centre at the site where it produces its salt products. Bosses here believe that while North Wales can look east for economic benefits, it would leave a bitter taste if that came at the expense of connections with South Wales.
In Wales, we have the cooperation, and in North Wales, we don't have the connectivity. It's crazy to think that we can get to London in just over 3¼ hours, and yet to get into our own capital city can take up to 5 hours, and that's nonsense. And while, because of the communication, because it's 2¼ hours or 2½ hours to Manchester, it's obvious that there'd be a link there. But our link, our heart link, is with the rest of Wales.
The aim for all must be to ensure that from Anglesey to Deeside and everywhere in between, benefits can come from these developments in the north of England. But there's a lot of work to be done if Wales really is about to attempt to create a northern powerhouse of its very own.
Brian Meakin reporting. Well, joining me now is the Economy Minister, Labour's Edwina Hart. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Becca.
How would you like to see North Wales benefit from this northern powerhouse?
Well, I think the Northern Powerhouse is potentially very exciting. And in terms of North Wales, we've done a lot of work in terms of the North Wales Economic Ambition Board with the local authorities, the fact that we were an early partner in the Mersey-Dee Alliance, and we do see strategic transport lips and employment opportunities arising from the Northern Powerhouse.
And what are you doing as a government, and you personally, in terms of lobbying George Osborne to make sure that North Wales does factor in this new powerhouse?
Well, I think it's